And this is all recorded, so.
Hi, family. My name's Rob. I'm an addict. Hey, Rob. And this is application of spiritual principles, correct?
Oh, yeah.
All right. My mind's working today. That's awesome. I got some sleep. Like I said, my name's Rob. I'm an addict. And I don't know, when I first got to NA, I was told to shut up and listen, and I might survive myself. And that was a long time ago. And now it's about following direction. And when I first came in here, I did not know how to stop using drugs. I didn't even want to stop using drugs when I came through the doors. I was put here and said, you need to be here, you know. And it took a while before I came to the realization that I was an addict and that I had a problem and that I should do something about it. And I suffered a lot of consequences from those time periods. But once I finally got to the point that I knew I had a problem, I had to do something about it, I finally started listening to what people were telling me to do. And I came around here for a few years, and when I first started coming around here, there wasn't a whole lot of NA meetings. It was mostly the other fellowship, the OF, you know. And anyway, once I got, it says in our literature, when we become beaten, we become willing. And I'm an advocate of our literature. You know, I didn't understand, and I would kind of fake it till I make it, and I would do the parenting thing. I'd see people do stuff, and I would parent with their phrases and stuff, and I did that until I started reading the literature. And then I started understanding how insidious this disease is. Like the disease of addiction, it's ingrained in every area of my life. All right, drugs brought me to the doors of NA. All right, once I put the dope down, the behaviors and the thinking, it's still there. You know, and the spiritual principles. I wasn't too spiritual. I didn't understand the spiritual principles when I first came here. I mean, yeah, you get the first three, the honesty, the open-mindedness, and willingness, but there's so many more. And I guess it's just like life. Once you go through life's adversities and you face certain things, you apply these principles as you learn them, or as you see other people go through them as well. I was told, like when I first got here too, whenever you talk from the heart, say a quick prayer to your higher power, and let them flow through you. And that's kind of the rule of thumb I have followed since I've been coming here. And it seems to work out pretty good. I don't see anybody really dashing for the doors when I speak, so it's kind of cool. And what I've experienced is, like the first one, like honesty. I had to get honest that, you know, I had a disease and I did things and I had to take responsibility for it. You know, I had to quit blaming others for the way I behaved. And first I had to stop using. It's like it says in the literature, we got to stop using, you know. You can't expect to get better if you're still putting toxins in your body. And so I did that, and then, you know, and I just worked on the first step for a long time. You know, I just practiced not using. Because, like I said, when I got here, I did not know how to stop using drugs. So I had to ask you guys, how do you stop this? How does that obsession, you know, go away? And there's just don't pick up, you know. Trust us. Have a little faith in what we're trying to tell you. You know, and at that point, if I didn't see it, I didn't believe it. I had no faith, you know. I just wanted the pain to stop. So, you know, I had just a little sliver. And what it was that I seen here was hope. Because when I first came to the meetings here, I didn't have any hope. But I seen people smiling. I seen people going to coffee after the meetings. I seen people just joking and laughing, gut-bunching laughter from the most craziest sort of nonsense. But it was fun. And that gave me hope. So I followed the direction, and I kept coming. I didn't pick up. And after a while, after I got, you know, felt a little more comfortable around you people, around us, you know, I started to to take some suggestions, you know. Get on your knees and pray, you know. Pray to what, you know? The only prayer I ever did was, please get me out of this situation. Now, a buddy of mine said he never did the foxhole prayers, but I did. I remember sitting in the back of the police cars going, please just get me out of this one. I'm going to do good. I used to do that, you know. I didn't have a whole lot of, I was not brought up in a religious, and I know this is not a religious program, but I was brought up in like almost a Catholic, like a Lutheran kind of a situation, so I really shunned that kind of thing. So when I seen step 2, I was like, no. But this is not religion, it's spirituality. Total different ballgame. And it took me a while to figure out the difference, you know. So I finally got on my knees and I just started checking in with Gus, the guy upstairs. It's an acronym I use for my higher power. And, you know, I would say, hey, I'm here, just checking in. And it was real super quick at first. And then it sort of built up after that. And now my relationship with my higher power is totally different. It's totally different. And, you know, I've seen, like what they talk about in step 2, the little miracles that happen around here. I've experienced them. And I'll give you one quick example and I'll go up to what I was going to talk about next. But I remember this was back in like 88 or something like that. I went to a meeting. I think I had 11 months clean at the time. And I left the meeting. I wanted to get high so bad. And I ended up getting high. But as I left the meeting, you know, I was going down to cop. Car got in front of me. And it said, never alone on a bumper sticker. You know, I went around that one. You know, guy's in my way. And then another car, easy does it. Happened 3 times. Gus was trying to look out for dude, and I just didn't care. You know, I didn't want any part of it at the time. You know, I was not willing to do the work around here. And sometimes we just got to hold on. If we don't know what to do, just don't do nothing. Or even better yet, make a phone call, reach out, because I think that's one of the hardest lessons we have to learn around here is reaching out, asking for help, especially when everything it tells us is that don't let them know. And then that's the disease talking to us. One of the best things that I've learned around here is identifying the disease when it talks to me. And with me, this thing never shuts off, ever. I mean, I say this all the time. I get up in the morning and for the first 10 seconds, I'm perfect. And then this thing kicks in, you know. But I know what I'm facing every day. And I know I have help, you know. And one of the things about applying the spiritual principles, and like I said at the beginning, they were just a couple of ones that I could identify in the book. You know, the first 3, the honesty, the open-minded, but there's so many more. And I was discussing with a buddy of mine today. He's actually my sponsor. I guess he's my sponsor, but not officially. But he's a good dude, and I've known him for years. And he's got longevity around here. And you know, I always go to him. And there's another gentleman I go to too. But when I don't know or I want to know something about either what I'm going through or checking to see if my thinking's correct, you know, I'll ask for help. You know, because I know, left to my own devices, I don't make really sound decisions. I think they're really great, and that's when I really should be running to my sponsor or running to somebody with some experience around here. And there's so many different arenas that we have to, or we think we know, but we have to really learn about, like relationships with their higher power, relationships with your friends, relationships with the significant other, your children, because we live life around here. Because when we come here, at least I was when I came here, I was so isolated. I didn't know how to interact with people. I didn't know how to have adult conversations. I didn't know how to just let somebody be and not feel some kind of way, you know. I didn't know how to process my feelings. I didn't know how to react. I've learned how to do that around here. I've learned how to put some time in between what I see out here, what kicks through this thing, and what spits out this thing. And you guys have taught me that. You know, you've taught me that. Compassion is a huge one around here. You know, I was sitting in a workshop earlier, and a gentleman was talking about his, going through the death of his mother, and that's huge. If you're an addict and you're in NA, you're going to get good at the grieving process. That's just a fact. You know, because we bury people around here. And we bury people for all the various reasons, whether it be ODs or the lifestyle of going back to using, or just general death in families or whatever. But we learned how to deal with it. When I was using, I didn't deal with it. I just numbed it and moved on until I squished it down so deep that it finally was like that, what it says in the literature, the pressure cooker effect. Boom, But the compassion. I was living out in Vegas a couple years back. And, I had left my wife because she wouldn't stop using. And I didn't want to live that kind of life anymore. And I knew if I stuck with that I would end up probably using. So I had to cut some times. And we learned how to do some really hard stuff around here. Stuff that when we're going through it, we're like, that doesn't feel right. And everybody else in the fellowship just do this, and you don't want to do it because it's your self-will and it's out of fear. So we end up taking some blind faith, and we do these things, and it ends up working the way it's supposed to work out. Because around here, our family give us pieces of advice, and they're hard to listen to, and if we take them, we end up okay. Because it's out of love that this thing works. It's how it works. At least that's been my experience. And anyway, I was living in Vegas. My mother died. I had talked to her the night before. Thank God I talked to her the night before. We had a really good conversation, And she told me she was proud of me. And she said, you just stay there and keep doing what you're doing. You just stay clean. So she died the next day, and I flew back. And there was Patrick and Denise were here, and they I knew I didn't want to see my wife because she was using so hard. And they said, don't worry about a thing. You can stay with us, and we'll look out for you. And they took me under the wing, and they got me through it, And, it's that kind of stuff that we experience around here that helps us to get through with whatever we got to go through. When life's adversities hit me, I've learned how to apply the steps. And, I always don't know what to do, because life is one of these deals. It's up and down, and I don't have a whole lot of experience, like I said, at making really sound decisions. So I asked my friends, and an amazing thing happens. The friends ask my advice as well because of the stuff that I've gone through, and it's the therapeutic value of one addict helping another. And, like I said, I'm a real advocate of the literature. If you're new around here, ask for help. That's the biggest asset you can give yourself. Ask for help. I've learned how to be as honest as I possibly can today. Sometimes people don't really like me so much because I am that honest, but I came here to save my life, and I don't have time to waste. I just don't. Now, I don't go through life leaving a wake in my path either. I don't go out to hurt people, and I know this thing can do that. It can be a vicious tool, left to my own devices. So I got to watch what I say. Sometimes I don't have much of a filter, and I do know how to work that 10th step pretty good. By working the 10th step, it kind of limits on your 4th. Every time you do a 4th, it kind of keeps that list to a dull roar. I've noticed the more I do this stuff, the easier it gets, The more I ask for help, the easier it gets. And I also know that by having faith that God puts the people in my life at the exact moments they need to be there. I've also learned a couple of other little things around here, how to classify people. So it lets me know how to deal with them. And there's basically 3 kinds. There's going to be people that are going to be put in your life for a lesson. There's going to be people that are put in your life for a season. And then there's going to be people that put in your life for a lifetime. And once I figure out where they fit in, then I know how to deal with them, And I always don't know how to deal with it, so I ask for help, you know. One of the issues that I always joke about this, I always say I got a bad picker, you know. And what I've done kind of the last few years is I've just learned how to stay on my own, you know, figuring out who I am. And it's been a really, really, I don't know how to say it, but that's been a really cool experience for me. I've learned a lot of stuff about myself. I have a lot of really cool assets. And yeah, it's you know, it goes both ways. You know, sometimes you get real lonely. And, you know, if you let it, that self-pity will trickle in. But if you apply what they tell you to do around here, it keeps that to a dull roar, you know. I think it was Rob Smart when he said, if you're bored around here, it's your own damn fault, because there's all kinds of stuff we do. This is just, I really look forward to this weekend. I really do. I heard Denise share earlier about this is her dumping ground. This is where she heals, and that's pretty true. Well, the first experience I had with this convention years ago was how everybody kind of comes together. You know, I've been to a lot of conventions, and you know, I've been to world conventions and stuff like that. And there's always these little cliques, you know, and I don't know if it's my perception, probably, but you know, I always feel kind of alienated, and I always kind of felt like that my whole life. So I think that's kind of the disease. But this particular spirit, I call this a spiritual retreat as well. It seems like everybody just kind of comes together. You know, we do the Saturday bonfire gig with the guitar, and we have a lot of fun, and we see old friends that we haven't seen for a while, and we get to pop up and see them at different conventions and stuff like that, and we meet new people, you know, and that's what we do. We experience the love, and that's why I think the logo for this retreat is so profound. We grow with love, because we do, you know. We learn that. We have it in us when we first get here. We just don't know it, you know. We don't know how to express it. We don't know how to be adult about it. We don't know how to show love, because we revert to how we're surviving out in the streets and what we did to get the next one. And if you showed that weakness, you usually didn't get your next one. At least I didn't, you know. So, but we got to do what we don't like doing, you know. If it makes us feel uncomfortable, we probably should be doing it. You know what I mean? And that's one of the things that I've learned around here. You know, I'm just another addict trying to stay clean today, and you know, I've learned a few things. I've learned to not pick up no matter what. I've learned to just stay in the day. That was a big one, because I didn't understand that shit for years. I stay in the day. What's that mean? You know, where are we at? We're in a really cool place. We're in a warm building. I got coffee, you know. And again, nobody's running out the door. So, you know, I don't know. I really enjoy coming here, applying the spiritual principles. It's a process, and it gets easier with application. And every step has a different spiritual principle, and what's, like I said before, you can interchange them. We were talking about that earlier too. And there's so many of them: compassion, empathy. Could go on. There's a lot of them. Read the literature. If you're new around here, read the literature. It speaks volumes. I don't know about you, but every time I read that book, and I've been reading it since kind of the early 80s, it always speaks to me. It always jumps out, because life changes. It's never the same. And this whole process is about change. It's about growing, and that's what I choose to do. I don't always do it with a whole lot of grace. Sometimes, like I said, my filter's kind of broke, but I do try, you know. And I today, when I go to sleep, the thing doesn't really spin a whole lot. You know, I can sleep at night. And I never used to be able to do that before. When I was using, it was a horrible existence, and that's all it was an existence. Today, I have a life. I have friends. You know, integrity is a huge one. I like to be a person that says, what I like to be a person that, you know, I do what I say and I say what I do. You know, that means, that's my belief. You know, and that's what I've learned here from you guys. You guys have taught me how to live life with a little tact and dignity, where I didn't have that much before. So, thanks for letting me speak, and we're going to bring on the Mark right now and let him chop it up. Thanks.
I'm an addict. My name's Mark. Applying spiritual principles. First thing I got to do is I need to learn what they are. And I don't really, when I got here, two of those words weren't in my vocabulary, spiritual principles. What the hell is that? So many of the things we talk about, man, forget everything you know, and that was a tough one for me, because I figured I knew some pretty good shit, and what I knew bought me a chair in a 12-step program. Today I thank my higher power for that, because I got to I was lucky. I got to a 12-step program. I get to go to meetings today. And I still go. I attend meetings. I attend meetings regularly. I try to, well, in my hometown, we got 2 meetings. So my home group and the Saturday morning meeting. So I attend both of those weekly when I'm home. And when we're on the road, I try to attend 2 meetings a week. That's what I try to do. I really like 3, but I like to attend meetings. These things, because if I get away from you too long, then I start knowing some shit, you know? And what I know is pretty dangerous to me. And see, here's what happens with application. Knowledge does not equal application. And you know, the things that we have in our literature, like we are each other's eyes and ears. And so if somebody is spotting behavior in me that isn't necessarily appealing, and they start questioning me on that behavior, I might react with 2 words: I know. So the minute I say I know, I've just discounted everything you say. And I know. So applying a spiritual principle in that situation is accepting the criticism. And sometimes I'm really good at that. Sometimes I ain't. But it's okay. I'm just trying to get through this thing. In our opening readings, How It Works talks about 3 indispensable spiritual principles: honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Listening to those words, I don't really know what open-mindedness and willingness means. I don't know. So, but I kind of know what honesty means. And I kind of know that in my using, I'm not doing a lot of real honest shit. I'll convince you I am, but I'm really not. So the first honesty I exhibit is the honesty of maybe what I'm doing ain't right. Maybe I need to try something different. And so that's how I start getting into honesty, just by thinking differently. I didn't accept everything that was told to me in the beginning. I discounted most of it. But people say that's what happens when you're faced with the truth and you don't want to hear it. You discount the people telling you the truth, then you discount the information that you're given, and then you get the fuck on, you know, because I can't handle the truth. So all I did, I guess, in the beginning that was correct was I kept coming back. I just kept coming back, and I didn't use. And I guess that's where the open-mindedness and the willingness began. Because I was hearing shit in these rooms that was completely foreign to me. And I'll never forget the first foreign language I heard. I went to somebody after I'd been attending meetings for a little while, and I had some faith in this person. And I said to them, look, man, this guy here is an idiot. I can't stand this guy. I don't know. I'm going to reach out and touch his ass, man, next time he gets sharing. And the guy goes, you know what you need to do, Mark? I said, no. What? Yeah, what? Tell me. He goes, sit next to him. Oh, wow. Was that some foreign language? And then I heard pray for him. Well, I wasn't into the prayer thing. See, I was religious revolution. So if you started talking, praying, I shut. There was where my open-mindedness stopped. The word God. I axed it. And I remember when I got my 1-year coin, the guy asked me, you got any questions? I said, man, I can't do this God thing. And I was afraid, man, I'm going to say this and they're going to kick me out. And I told him, I said, I can't do the God thing. And he said, that's all right. Whoa. He said, are you going to meetings? Well, yeah, going to some. You using? No. Okay, you got good orderly direction. Okay. There became some open-mindedness. I could take a word that really pissed me off, and I could apply it to a principle that would help me. And that's what I did. And then I started hearing some, to me, magical words. And I've said them. I've repeated them to other people that have struggled with this thing, this God thing. Believe that we believe. Wow. Okay. And I could see that you were doing something, you know, that, and not measured by society, but I could see happiness. I could see joy, fellowship. Yeah, man, the people hanging out and stuff, you know, I could see that. And I wanted some of that. And so I guess that's where I believe that you believe. So I became willing to believe. And you know, the second step, taking it a word at a time, we come to believe. We come to believe. I had to stop right there, you know, because the part about getting restored to sanity pissed me off, because now I ain't getting high, I'm trying to be okay, and you bastards are telling me I'm crazy, you know, so that pissed me off. But so I just axed a bunch of words out of that step, man, so I could become open-minded enough to keep coming back. I mean, this is what I did, so. But the spiritual principles come as a result of working the 12 steps. That's what happens. That's how you come to spiritual principles. And I don't even have to make that part up so you like me, man. You know? Because our literature says, why did we come to Narcotics Anonymous? As the result of the wreckage of our past. Well, what did we expect? Well, the last thing we expected was an awakening of the spirit. That's the last thing we expected. I didn't expect. I just wanted to get a lot of people off my ass. Okay, there was a lot of people on my ass that were really pissing me off, and I figure if I go here, I'm trying to do something good, and then you'll like me again. And so that's why I came. And that's what the next line says. We just wanted to stop hurting. I didn't even realize I was hurting. I didn't realize that. So all through that 12th step, it talks about how the steps lead to an awakening of a spiritual nature. See, awakening of a spiritual nature. I lost that part. This disease is mental, physical, and spiritual. The physical is easy, to understand, because do dope long enough and you're pretty much a wreck. I wasn't the most physical specimen when I got here. And mental, shit. Are you kidding me? But the spiritual death, I think that's very insidious part of this disease, the spiritual death. Because, see, I quit caring for anybody and anything but me. When I'm in that spiritual death, I'm in this black hole, and the only light is me. And that's it, man. Talk about a dangerous place. See, the 12th step, the 12th step points out what the spiritual principles are. And it says, by staying clean, okay? So that's the first part of it. Now we begin to practice. That's an important word for me. Spiritual principles such as hope, surrender, acceptance, honesty, open-mindedness, willingness. There that one is again. Faith, tolerance, patience. Then you get into humility, unconditional love, sharing, and caring. And then as our recovery progresses, spiritual principles touch every area of our lives. I had to get with the part that when it wasn't touching every area of my life, every minute of every day, that it's okay, I wasn't a failure. Because I'll get real, I can beat myself up pretty good, I don't need any help from anybody else. I can do that. The spiritual principles really do. I notice this. I become less judgmental unless we're making fun of somebody. I mean, we're talking shit, and we get pretty outrageous, but we don't mean no harm, man. But the spiritual principles, as I try to live differently, they come easier and quicker. They're not as hard to hang on to as they used to be. And I mean, honesty, to try to get to honesty, like the first time I remember doing things honestly was like cash register honesty. People give you too much money and you give it back. And now, I mean, that has become a thing. Like when I'm in a restaurant, I'll look at the bill. Sometimes they don't give you the bill. They just tell you what you owe, and I ain't gonna make a scene. I'll just give them what they tell me. But if they give me the bill, I always look at the bill. And sometimes I don't get charged for things, and I'll point it out. Hey, man, I didn't get charged for it. Thank you for your honesty. Well, okay, you're welcome. I don't have to get into big explanations of, yeah, I'm a dope fiend, man. If I start ripping your little waitress ass off, what am I going to do next, I mean, so I don't have to explain myself. I just can say thank you. And I've learned to accept compliments. And that's hard, man, because I don't want to believe that I can be complimented. And the one I remember about this is the first time I bought a second motorcycle. I had a great idea with these fucking motorcycles, but I bought a second motorcycle, and I would be riding a motorcycle, and I would be somewhere, and somebody would come up and look at the motorcycle and go, "Man, that's really a nice motorcycle." The first thing out of my mouth is, "Man, I got another one at home in the garage." What's that all about, man? How egotistical is that? I mean, so now, the moment, maybe the person wants to start a conversation, I've just blown that conversation all to hell, So if somebody tells me I have something nice, I say thank you. And you know, I try to say something nice back, man. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. But I'm learning, I really try to apply this stuff in my life. And I think it's a really good way to live. Everything I have today, everything, bar nothing, is a direct result of living clean. And it's a direct result of Narcotics Anonymous. And I might not do it the way other people do it. I might not. I don't care. I do it the way I do it. It's worked for me. And I remain grateful. And I guess I kind of look for spiritual gifts. And it can be something as simple as, and I really do this like in the city. So city folks I don't know if you run into this very much, but I've been down the road in the city and hit like 6 or 7 green lights in a row, man. And I just go, wow, thanks, man. You know? I mean, and to me that's a spiritual thing, because I lived in this town in Valdosta, Georgia, and Jesus Christ, I'll tell you what, I tried to practice spirituality with traffic lights down there. I never did get it, but I would try to practice it. But them lights were never timed, and you know, little thing like that, little thing like hitting a bunch of green lights. It's a nice thing to have happen. I think in the old days, I wouldn't be recognizing nothing like that. No way. So, that's what I got on applying spiritual principles. I think the best way for me to do that is with gratitude. And gratitude, I say thank you a lot throughout the day. I really do. I just don't have to live or exist or survive the way I used to live. And I got one little thing about this judgmental tip. I worked, and this is another thing I got to be real grateful for to Narcotics Anonymous. I worked for the Michigan Department of Corrections for 25 years, and 24 and a half. And I retired, and I didn't parole. I got a pension. They paid me. And towards the end of my career, it was really getting ugly. It was getting ugly. And I supervised prisoners in a kitchen setting. I was the guy. And I had a guy that worked for me that was a lifer. And I long ago, because I was clean when I got the job, and long ago, I mean, a lot of the people I worked with had a lot of judgment to pass on prisoners. And it was easy to get caught up in that shit, man. I chose not to pass judgment. I mean, there were people that you knew that, man, look, get this guy out of here. He just ain't, there's nothing happening there. But this dude that I had, he was my head cook. And I got into a pissing match with my boss one day. And if I would have been my boss, I'd have fired my ass. But my boss was not, he didn't have enough balls, I guess. I'm just saying, you know. So I did go off on this dude, and I went off on him in the kitchen in full view of probably 15 prisoners. And 10 of them were just enjoying the show, you know, because, you know, change the channel. We got something live here now, shit. Look at Smitty go, man. So this guy, and one thing in prison, prisoners don't touch staff. There's a place called the Hole, and that's where you go when you touch staff. And this guy, full view of cameras and everything, grabbed my arm and led me into my office and told me, what you just did to that man was wrong, and you need to sit down, we got this. And I didn't question that. And I share that because, well, look, number one, I found out if I'm taking advice from lifers, I really need to do a little more work and look at what the hell's going on. But the other thing is, by not passing judgment and by treating this man as a human being, he might have saved my job. He might have saved my pension. Because if my boss would have said anything back to me, shit, it would have been on, man. And you know what happened to me that morning? Before I went to work, I sat down with my books, I did my meditation, I did everything I had to do. I'm sure I was at a meeting within a week prior to this incident. But see, things happen to us, man. Life shows up. And I think of that guy a lot, man. I'm grateful I followed his advice, and I let them guys run it for the day. And I did apologize to my boss, and you know, he was, Mark, don't worry about it. We all get upset. Well, shit. Yeah? Try that shit again, motherfucker. I mean, I didn't say I accepted it, but, you know, I don't know. So I tell that story because I know there's people I worked with that the minute that guy would have laid their hands on him, man, it would have been all about 10-10 in the kitchen. Let's go, man. Chain them up, you know. But, you know, I've learned. I take advice today. And by not judging people, you never know where that advice is going to come from that just might save your ass. So, I don't know. Struggle here, man. That's what I tell people. If you're new around here, struggle here. Struggle here. Because we really like it, man. When you win the struggle and you share that shit with us too, that's exciting, man. Thanks.
Thanks to the speakers for speaking. And how much time do we have left? We have until 4:15. So we have like 15 minutes or so, or 20 minutes or so, if anybody wants to share on spiritual principles.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jonathan. I'm an addict.
Hello, Jonathan.
I really like this topic a lot, and the reason I like this topic a lot is because I also had a real big problem with God. The fact that the word was in the steps really bothered me. I mean, I didn't have a concept of a God. And I started working the program. I started by not using. And I started feeling something, and I wanted more of that feeling. And so I would go to where we met and hang outside for hours at a time, just waiting for the next meeting to start. But as I progressed in the program, you know, I realized that God could be good, orderly direction, and that didn't really fit for me. For me. But you know what did fit was the program. And when I learned to pray, I prayed the program. I prayed the 12 steps. And that matured into these spiritual principles was my God. That was what made the world work right. When it did work, when it worked right, it was when people were using spiritual principles. And I try all I can to practice spiritual principles, and it's really important to me. And Mark, I love your shoes. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, that's, no one else? Okay. I'm gonna